For too long, traders have been burdened with fragmented tools, scattered data, and outdated systems. It's time for a better way. This is Quasar Markets, an award-winning platform that doesn't just support traders. It empowers them to do their best work. With Quasar Markets, we've brought together over 1,000 tools into a single, seamless experience. It's all here in one place. When it comes to data, we knew we had to get it right. That's why we've integrated insights from the most trusted sources: Edgar, Fred, NASDAQ, the World Bank, and other leading financial institutions, along with real-time updates on sports, trends, weather, and news. But we didn't stop there. We wanted to empower every trader to learn, grow, and succeed. That's why Quasar Markets gives you access to leading educators and strategies powered by advanced AI. At the heart of it all is AI. It analyzes millions of data points, identifies trends, and delivers actionable insights. What makes Quasar Markets truly revolutionary is how it adapts to you. With customizable tools and flexible options, it works the way you do. We've built this platform with one goal: to help you make better, faster decisions without the noise. This is the future of financial research. It's simple, it's powerful, and it's built for you.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. Happy to see everybody this morning. Let me get myself set up here. We've had a busy weekend for sure. There we go. That's the one I like. So let's get ourselves started here. Biggest news, of course, over the weekend, or especially yesterday, was all of the crypto talk, right? We wake up today, Bitcoin back at 93,500 or so, after going as low as 78,000 on Friday. You can see that rebound has been pretty swift. We do see some profit taking. I will say have been warning people since yesterday morning about profit taking. It is a sell the news a little bit. A lot of these things jumped up tremendously. Bitcoin, like I said, jumped from below 80 back up to that 95 area. Nice little pullback here, but holding up pretty steady. The news really wasn't any new news. We talked about it last week. I had mentioned that there was a crypto summit coming that had been announced by David Sachs, who is the crypto czar, or crypto and AI czar for the White House. So we do have that coming up here in March. Let me find my thing here. There they are. And as a result, we're seeing a lot of the crypto stocks rally. Big takeaways sort of from the announcement. It was interesting. A very large 50x position on Bitcoin and Ethereum were placed right after the announcement or right before the announcement, leading to a lot of finger pointing and wondering if any of those or anyone directly connected to the administration in some way. So I'm sure we'll see more about that. And it was interesting because it came across in a couple of tweets. The first tweet talked about the fact that they were going to start this crypto reserve to bring, it started on Truth Social, and then moved on to Twitter quickly. The president tweeted that under the last administration, crypto had been unfairly held back as an industry, and he was going to change that. And in fact, he was, authorizing the crypto reserve, including XRP, Solana, which is SOL, and Cardano, which is ADA. That got the world of Twitter in an uproar immediately, as all of the Bitcoin maxis and all of the people who hold Ethereum lost their minds. I quickly was calming people down both on Twitter and on the Quasar Slack channel here, saying, folks, keep in mind that Eric Trump and Barron Trump own a large amount of Ethereum and Bitcoin. Howard Lutnick, who is the commerce chairman, Scott Bassett, who is the treasury hold, or are very intertwined to Bitcoin. Just calm down. And sure enough, there was a second tweet that came out saying, of course, that Bitcoin and Ethereum will be the basis or the biggest part of it. I will say that I'm going on at 4:00 today live with the folks at Prosper Trading Academy and some folks from the CBOE or the CBO to talk about what's going on in the world of Bitcoin and what this means. This isn't even my biggest takeaway, quite frankly, from Bitcoin over the weekend or on Friday. Bigger news to me was that BlackRock announced, and let's go backwards a little bit. A lot of people have over the past 6 months, falsely been tweeting when there is a move of Bitcoin or Ethereum from IBIT to Coinbase that BlackRock's getting out of the crypto business. They're selling all their holdings. Up until the announcement that they made at the end of last week, BlackRock didn't hold any Bitcoin or Ethereum or any crypto assets. They only held what was needed for their ETFs. So again, Bitcoin ETF, you buy IBIT, IBIT. In return, BlackRock promises and goes out immediately and uses the money that you just deposited into their accounts, and they purchase Bitcoin on the spot market, actually on the OTC market, not the spot market. But then when you or somebody else decides to sell your IBIT, they have to make a corresponding sell of the underlying asset, in this case, Bitcoin or Ethereum. They were not in the business of investing in it one way or the other. They were just the custodian that facilitated this move. That all changed on Friday. They announced that they were putting 1 to 2% of their acceleration fund into Bitcoin. That is huge, because when you start to run the numbers on some of that, what that would mean, and I did that here. Let me just find it. So, number one, their announcement or the implications from it, they allocated between 1 to 2% of their portfolio to IBIT. Again, not a huge amount. That's a pretty modest amount. So what I started to do was ask ChatGPT, Grok, some of the others, Perplexity, what would this mean if other market managers moved this around and did something like that? And, what I got back was, BlackRock manages about $130 billion across its model portfolios. This 1 to 2% allocation will translate to basically a $1.3 to $2.6 billion in inflows to IBIT from just them, right? So they're going to add $1 to $2 billion in buying power right away. Oh, Steve, you was just asking me, BigBeat, hey, I didn't mention Steve is not with us. He is on a well-deserved vacation, having hopefully some pina coladas on his way to Panama, I believe, on his cruise right now. But they're buying, like I said, 1.3 to 2.6 billion. Now they hold 48 billion in Bitcoin in their ETFs, but that, again, that is really our holdings of Bitcoin or investors that own IBIT. That's not BlackRock's holdings. But so I started to ask what would happen if if this got extrapolated out, and, if companies like Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity were to adopt a similar 1 to 2% allocation to their portfolios. And basically what came back was that the big three, which is BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, manage over 20 trillion in assets. 20 trillion with a T. If they are to put 1 to 2% allocation across their portfolios, that then becomes $200 billion to $400 billion. So keep that in mind, 200 to 400 billion. I don't think they do 1 to 2 across all of their portfolios. So I wouldn't be looking at that number. But just think about what that number really could be, and even a conservative level, as all of these, companies race to add it to their portfolio, right? Because once one does, especially when that one is BlackRock, the largest, people have to follow, right? Because it means if you don't, you could lose your customers. And what it really means is a shift in total portfolio allocation across a broader spectrum. Because what does that mean? Vanguard doesn't want to take the chance, right, that their high wealth customer client, in their private banking group can't get access to a vehicle that they want to use and invest directly in. And now they have to chase to get into that, because they don't want that person starting to nibble the toes into the world of BlackRock, right? They don't want them using BlackRock's system. Once you start to use it, then you go, wow, I really like this system. Maybe I start to move more money into there. So I truly believe that this is a much bigger than what the president has going on. And I would point out that, basically President's news yesterday was just a rehash of what he'd already said. The only thing that sort of happened was before he used the words US-based crypto companies would be included, he expanded that a little bit to actually call out the names of Cardano, Solana, and XRP. So that really was the only change to the news yesterday. This summit was already on the books for a few days before that. So that wasn't new news. And again, he's had this executive order in place for a month. It was just reiterating the news. So I did want to point that out, but that has, all of the crypto stocks moving. They were most of the larger movers across, the spectrum today. You can see Hut 8, although I will point out that Hut 8 also had earnings, and good earnings. They really knocked it sort of out of the park, and they are up the most this morning, up about 12.68%. But you also have a bunch of others. MSTR, of course, is up 14.67%. Again, we know MicroStrategy, the largest holder of Bitcoin outside of a few countries, and 14.73%, again, up today. CleanSpark, which is a data center, but mostly was a Bitcoin mining company exclusively, now is in the data center world, also up 13%. BitDeer up 13, Mara up 12, Riot up 11.31. And again, I'll point out none of these are on earnings today or yesterday. I will also point out, I made it clear when Robinhood and Coinbase were dropping last week, right, as crypto dropped, what did I say on the show? I am buying that dip. Why am I buying that dip? They don't lose. Again, they don't hold large amounts of crypto, but they facilitate the trading. So who won when the prices were dropping last week? Robinhood and Coinbase. Why'd they win? Their transactions went through the roof as people capitulated. And as people then dove right back in, they just get more transaction fees. And you see Coinbase up 10.23%, Robinhood up 9.78%. I don't want to make this all about crypto this morning, but it really is what's driving the markets and driving the rebound. Let's face it, because from there, the chips have been on the move and everything else heating up from that. So we will stick with it, because I want to point out another huge move that I think, again, is just as big probably, or shows how important what's going on in the government is. Robinhood is partnered with Uniswap. Uniswap is UNI. Again, one of the cryptos that I have been a long proponent of and talked about as being a beneficiary of what's going on in the world of crypto under the new regime. Uniswap is by far the largest DeFi spot where you can buy coins. It is a decentralized exchange. It is the largest. Here, I'll pull up the figures for us. Just how big it is right now in transactional value. Give me 1 second here. Exchanges. And I'll pull this over here. So when I talk about Uniswap, Uniswap is where a lot of the other coins, or most of the other coins that trade on Ethereum, that are Ethereum based tokens, things like Chainlink and, you know, a million other projects out there, the Graph, Render, etc., trade on these exchanges. It's also where all the meme coins trade and everything else. And what it is it's meant to replace something like Coinbase and Robinhood, in that they take away the intermediary. You basically sell it to somebody directly with the use of a smart contract based on there. And you can see they do $2 billion in transactions a day. Well, they are now, and that's only on their Ethereum. If you look at their Arbitrum chain, which is the layer 2 part of Ethereum, they do another, you know, 1.1 billion, and they're also on Base, which is Coinbase's L2, for another 311 million, and they're on others. So Polygon for another 97 million. The other version on Ethereum at almost 100 million. Their Binance chain, another 73 million. You know, again, another Ethereum chain that they do with another 60 million. Avalanche chain, another 40 million. So again, you can just see how big Uniswap is. And the key thing is Uniswap's now going to allow from fiat to get into the world of decentralized exchanges directly through clicking in your Robinhood app. So this is huge for both Uniswap and Robinhood. Robinhood's going to be the way that this facilitates, and also MoonPay is involved. MoonPay is a little harder to get involved with. They are a Chinese-based company originally, but they're looking to, I don't think they IPO'd yet. I'll have to follow up on that. They were looking to IPO in the US as an ADR, so we'll see if that has happened already, if you can invest in it. Robinhood's the best way to play this, in my opinion. And again, what does it mean? It means that Robinhood now becomes the gateway to all of the world of decentralized exchanges literally overnight. They're going to launch this very quickly, and it is going to be, you know, it's, again, this is the huge adoption that is coming in the world of crypto, or the ease of doing it. So, and again, Uniswap, you know, in a nice little spot, but this is the one I'm talking about. It is UNI. So, and we'll talk more about them someday, because it's a great little one, because they were the first huge airdrop, or the first project that gave away their tokens to the people that were using their project. So a lot of us got a few $1,000s and more. You know, some people got $20,000, $50,000 in free tokens from them. So it was a pretty cool thing. We do have earnings on track. We got to keep an eye on. Okta is a big one today. GitLab, Plug Power, all on track today. So we will keep an eye on that. I did see some of them have already come in here. I got some notes here. We'll pull them up. You know what? They're on my big movers. So Plug Power is up about a half a basis points. They had some news already out here. Unfortunately, I've got so many notes here. There it is, Plug. So Plug Power so far before earnings announced a big change to how they're going to compensate their execs. It's going to be a 75% in stock. So they say that they want their leaders to be aligned with their shareholders. So interesting play there, had them moving up in advance of their earnings here today. TG is another one. It doesn't trade pre-market, that's got earnings going on today. Treasuries Corporation, an aluminum company. So they did report they had a narrow loss versus last year. So we'll see how that opens up. As I mentioned, Hut 8 had earnings, good earnings before open, up 12%. This is now a couple that have moved to the downside that were up. And I do have news on both of them here. Burford Capital did drop their results here, and earnings were a little bit of a miss, mixed results has them down about 5.77%. Company that I didn't even know was a public company, and now I'm mad I didn't know about it, was Sphere Entertainment, although they are pulling back here today. So anyone that has knows about the Sphere in Las Vegas, it is actually a publicly held company. I actually did not know that. I'm trying to find the notes I have here on their, here it is, on their things, because they had some cool stuff in their earnings. And again, they've now pulled back 3%. And you can see they had moved up before pulling back here. They had 308.3 million in revenue, which was down versus last year. And they did have an operating loss of about 142 million. So still not making any money. But that did again improve versus the year before. And they did, post positive earnings when it comes, or operating income when it comes to EBITDA of 32.9 million. And they did say on the operational highlights that Postcard from the Earth, which I do know that Dr. Alan Ellman from Blue Collar Investor that does our weekly show just saw last week and raved about. They did talk about the Eagle residency is going to be extended due to high demand, that Anima is completed a 12-run show. They also announced new residencies for the Dead and Company, Kenny Chesney, and the Backstreet Boys. I wouldn't mind seeing Kenny Chesney or the Dead and Company. Actually, I'd see all three of those. So interesting there. They also hosted Formula One Las Vegas Grand Prix and Delta Airlines events live. So they're getting into that aspect too. The other thing I thought was interesting was they have plans for a second Sphere venue in Abu Dhabi. So interesting there that they're looking at that. So pretty cool. But Sphere Entertainment was one that has earnings, like I mentioned. Okta up in advance of their earnings, up about 1.45% here today. Another one, earnings after hours today, ASTS up about 7.56% here. So a nice move up so far by ASTS, which is AST Space Mobile. And I also do have news from them. Put it up here on the bottom. And it basically is they're partnering with Vodafone to provide broadband service throughout all of Europe. There it is. So yeah, Vodafone and AST Mobile are launching a satellite service business in Europe, and they want to have, their own version. So we talked about this, right? As all of these sort of trade wars and tariff talk play out, Europe was one that was set to be a big loser in this. So they are trying there. As we talk on a bigger macro level, we do have some news this week on the economic data front. Today we have ISM manufacturing. I asked again ChatGPT to do me a favor, and I sort of put in the key economic reports this week and the estimates that were out there for them, and asked what the potential influence on the stock market could be on a scale of 1 to 100. And these are sort of what it came up with. And Monday's ISM was about a 65, so sort of moderate impact when it comes to what's going on. Wasn't one of the bigger ones out there, sort of in the middle. We know that anything above a 50 means that we're growing. Anything under a 50 means we're pulling back, and it is expected to fall right around 50. So definitely one there. Wednesday, we do have ADP, their employment report. It does serve as an indicator, early indicator for the official job report, which will come out on Friday. We also have ISM Services PMI, which was a mid-level one there. It, takes a look at the service industries of the U.S. economy. We also have then on Thursday, weekless jobless claims. and again, which goes to the job data, and then trade balance, which they didn't think either of those were all that important. But what's more important to point out is Friday we have non-farm payrolls. It gave that a 95%, and it was interesting as I was posting this yesterday. That's the one that everybody talked about, pointed out as to be the one they're looking at. So we could have a pretty volatile week here leading into the Fed. So I did like that. I went through and asked that to get broken down. We'll say that we have seen some movement out of Europe. Also, their stock exchange, the DAX, was jumping to a record high, and we've seen that that was being pushed up by Rheinmetall and some of the car drivers, the VW and Porsche. So nice move up there. And we also, we do have Stephen Flanagan, our man, when it comes to talk more about these macro issues and how they will affect the currency world, which then in turn affects the stock market on here at 10 o'clock. But European bond yields are moving up here. We've also seen here in the U.S., I want to point out that our yields moving up pretty fast here and furious over the weekend. We're back at 4.25 on the 10-year, up about 1.17%. Let me pull up my notes on that to give you what. You know, again, they climbed 4.23 after hitting a 2-month low on Friday. You know, we know that they have the March 4th deadline on the new tariffs, which is tomorrow. So people are worried about that 25% tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada, plus an additional 10-year duty on Chinese goods. Fear of this trade war escalation, you know, potentially driving inflation higher and limiting the Fed Reserve's ability to lower interest rates, all moving it up. We know geopolitical tension. We saw what happened on Friday in the White House in the Oval Office with Zelensky. Seemed to be a little bit of hope of moving in the right direction there, but we're not there without a doubt. So we need to see that come into place. Same thing, Gaza, Israel is not happy with what's going on with Hamas. So that's sort of coming to the forefront also. So things that we'll keep an eye on or that are important to the markets there. I did also ask some of the GPTs out there, you know, what companies would be hit hardest from some of these tariffs, both here in the U.S. and abroad, and wanted to talk to you a little bit about what it came up with there. So let's start a little bit with Canada. Actually, I got to go back up to go to Canada because I got them all in one little thing here. Here we go. So they pointed out that Syntax Data Analysis, which is really a New York-based company, but they had really identified the Canadian firms that looked to have the most U.S. revenue exposure. Nutrien NTR.TO topped the list, 60.8% of its 17.66 billion revenue comes from the U.S. So they are a key fertilizer supplier, so 80% of the U.S. potash. And the CEO, Ken Seitz, warned of higher costs for U.S. farmers. So again, you want to keep an eye on that because it's going to affect prices as they hit in the U.S. Also, because fertilizer, a key component to everything we do in farming in the U.S., is about to go up. Second one that they had here was Enbridge, ENB.TO. 45.5% of its annual revenue comes from the U.S. Its pipeline operations are expected to see minimal volume impact, the president of the company said, but that's yet to be seen. So other companies they talked about were TC Energy, Barrick Gold, Suncor Energy there. So keep an eye on that. I also then asked it to tell me a little bit about some of the Mexican companies that could be the most affected by these tariffs because they have huge U.S. exposure. One of them was Grupo Bimbo. global baking giant headquartered in Mexico City, is known for brands like Bimbo, Sara Lee, and Entenmann's. Their U.S. exposure, their U.S. is their largest market, with about 34% of its 2023 revenue coming in from North America, primarily the U.S. So that 25% tariff would be huge to them. And they didn't feel that Bimbo would be able to absorb those costs, which would be then pushed ahead. Cemex was another one that they talked about. One of the world's largest cement producers. They are based in Mexico, Monterrey. About 27% of their revenue is coming in from the U.S. right now, supplying cement and concrete for constructions. So keep that in mind. Cemex does have some U.S. plans to try to offset some of the losses, but those cross-border shipments are a big part of how they do business. Another one that's a mixed company, there are a couple of them that are mixed companies. We got to talk about Constellation Brands. We know they had earnings a few days ago. They are a U.S.-based company, but their Mexican subsidiaries produce Modelo, Corona, and Pacifico, which are heavily exported into the U.S., right? Modelo, we know, had become the #1 beer in the U.S. after the Bud Light fiasco there with their advertising to LGBTQ. And they could see 16% cost increase from the 25% tariff, leading to a 4.5% price hike for U.S. consumers. And that is coming from that industry. I used to be in the liquor and wine distribution industry. That's a huge deal to have almost a 5% hike for U.S. consumers. It would really hurt those brands. Sticking in sort of the same area, Jose Cuervo is another one that's important. Ooh, the markets are open. I am just talking away here. Tick is positive 386 to the upside. Advanced decline nicely up 32.57. We do see QQQ's first moves to the upside here, now up 83 basis points. SPY up 50 basis points. The RUT, which is the small market cap Russell, up 41 basis points. Dow Jones right now, the laggard, only up 35 basis points. But again, we are seeing these first moves to the upside. QQQ up now 94 basis points. And you can see right since the cash open at 9:30, nice move to the upside, trading at the highs of the day. Broke 513 here. I do have 515.22 as the first area I'm watching as key resistance here. Again, 515.22. But what I really want to see if we're going to be bullish here is I want to see a bullish engulfing candle. For those that don't know what that is, we opened up the pre-market below where we closed on Friday. I want to see us finish above Friday's high. That would be an extremely bullish move, in my opinion, and sort of reset the markets to the upside. So, until we can unless we do that, I still remain optimistic here. Nice bounce back, as we can see from the daily RSI that we talked about on Friday that we wanted to see make a move to the upside. Now it has. Little bit of profit taking when we hit that 513. So that seems to be the first spot where maybe some people have some sell orders here in again on the QQQ. As we look at the Mag 7, man, NVIDIA down 122.54, actually down. The only of the Mag 7 right now that's down. I didn't see really any news that would talk about this. In fact, they unveiled their RTX 50s at the CES 2025 conference, which is the huge consumer experience conference, consumer electronics conference in Vegas right now that I just talked about, that's at the Sphere. So that's a surprising, I guess you could always say, sell the news. Tesla up. I will say Tesla did get, and I do have here the headline somewhere, an upgrade. Morgan Stanley moved them back onto their top picks, gave them a 430 upside target, which was about a 50% move to the upside from where they were at that point. They did break that 300 level we talked about as being a key thing there, but I need to see them break 308.49 again. I've got some levels here that I'm sort of looking at that if we stay below, I'm still just, thinking volatility wins the day versus a true recovery here. So, and spots where I would look to fade it if I see, failure to break through those levels. That's what I'm looking at here. Microsoft's moving a little bit to the downside. We know from Mark Petrino, he uses that as a bigger bellwether for what you could look at from the general market. So with Microsoft moving to the downside here, if you follow his sort of views there, we're looking at a little bit of a weak day maybe that comes, starts to fade off. But so far, tick is still positive 106. Advanced decline hasn't really moved up or down, sitting right around that 3,300 level. VIX, and that's what I'll also warn, VIX is still pretty elevated here at 1946, not anywhere near the 2250 we saw as highs on Friday. But again, I would want to see that come back below Friday's lows at 1905 to think that volatility is pulling down. And I can't imagine that volatility really is pulling down with the tariff talk that will all be based upon and looking at, over the next few days. QQQ and SPY have pulled back slightly here. Bitcoin 92,491. There, I haven't really put my figures in, but again, based on what I just said about QQQs would sort of stick here. I would want to see a full bullish engulfment on a candle here, something that gets us above this 95,200 area with a hold. And what I'd say right now is 95 is the spot. It's where we failed. And you can see that was a pretty decent wick from that 95 down to 94,300. So it's something to keep an eye on. There's going to be some rebalancing on IBIT like we talked about this morning, and the other ETFs that are going to persuade stuff. There's going to be some news there. My biggest takeaway on everything is everything that you would want to hear in the terms of adoption. The other thing I'll point out on crypto that came out Friday was that the SEC sent notice to most, if not all, of sort of the companies that were wrongly being persecuted under the last administration, that they were dropping all of their investigations. It went out to companies like Consensus and Kraken and Binance and Coinbase and Uniswap and Render and all of those projects that had been under sort of scrutiny. So that also has, the markets moving in the right way. Gold starting to move a little bit back up here today. It had been, sort of holding tight there, unable to break back above 2,900. You'd basically saw it drop for 5 straight days. So it has sort of bounced back as tariff talk starts to kick back in, as we start to see, rates move up. And as we see the Dixie move a little bit to the down, not a little bit, but significantly to the downside here today, down back below that key 106.80 Stephen Flanagan talked about with us. Again, he will be back in 20 minutes here to talk everything we need to know about the forex markets. Let's take a look at the key early pre-market movers to see what's going on there. So we do see NVIDIA, and that was another news article that I had here. NVIDIA and Broadcom had announced at the conference, the CES conference, that they had been testing Intel's new 18A chips, which was a big vote of confidence for Intel. If you want to pull up more, I had a little bit more information on that one. No, that was the main stuff. Yeah. Just that they announced that, definitely a big boon for Intel. They were up as much as 5%, still up about 3.33 on the news. So again, that foundry business is important. It is good to see that they are moving, back in the right direction with that. So I was happy to see that in general. Other news that was sort of hitting the markets this morning that was not all that expected. Kroger, who does have earnings later this week, I believe on Wednesday, was down a little over 1%, was actually down more like 2%. Their CEO, their earnings are Thursday. They did announce that their CEO is stepping down, and he is stepping down resigning unexpectedly following a board investigation into his personal conduct unrelated to business operations. McMullen had a 40-year tenure at Kroger. They did appoint an interim CEO, which is Ronald Sargent. So, and again, we'll see what happens when we get earnings on Thursday, because we'll see what that fallout is still going from the Albertson failed acquisition. What's going on there. Ron Sargent was the lead director since 2017. So again, somebody who has been with them for a while. We'll see how that turns around, but that was sort of big news that we had also. We'll point out gambling stocks are up on Melco's sort of good news. So Melco up 7.55% here this morning. Again, Melco is a Chinese-based casino, really the largest in Macau. And Morgan Stanley had given them an upgrade. I'm looking for my banner on it here. Well, anyways, Melco had great earnings, and it has LVS moving up, Caesars moving up, and some of the others in sympathy. Interesting, Lee got killed after announcing that they gave their car shipments information, and they are down big on that news. Again, I could have sworn I had that. There it is. Their deliveries increased 30% to 26,263 units. They now have 500 retail stores in 150 cities with 488 servicing centers. So they are moving, but not big enough and not making a big enough dent into BYD's business or Tesla's. So down about 9.21% here today. We'll see Palantir moving back up here nicely, back now at 89.90. I mentioned once it closed that gap last week below that 83.62, that any move back above it that held, which it did on the close on Friday, would keep that in a bullish upward trajectory for me. And I still like Palantir here on that news. Another one moving up tremendously here today, ALGM, which is Allegro Microsystems. They move up about 20.85% on news that On Semiconductor is eyeing a takeover here. So again, Allegro, ALGM, up 20% here on that news. We do see MSTR taking a pullback here again, not very surprising. It was up, 20% here. Now trading back towards the lows of the day. 280.31 was the lows of the day. For me, it refilled the gap to the upside. So staying above that gap level at 276 would be the key downside that I'm looking at. And you can see it got rejected at that 296 area. I was looking, actually 295, never made it up to that 296.63 that I was watching where it filled the gap to last time. So I want to see that again before I remain bullish there on that. And a lot of the Bitcoin mining companies now starting to give a little bit of that money back. Same thing, Coinbase giving a little bit of money back. Robinhood, not surprising to me to see that. Another big mover this morning, PTGX, Protagonist Therapeutics. Their shares were up 9% in the pre-market. They got good news about a blood cancer drug that they have, a late-stage study. So that was a big move for them. PTGX, again, their phase 3 study of resveratrol met its endpoint. So they'll be applying to the FDA for approval, up about 6.65% on that news. Another one that was up earlier today, ESLT, which is EBIT Systems, is up 6.52%. They are an Israeli defense contractor based in Israel, and they announced a deal for $275 million to build some materials for the IDF directly. So Israel looking to support their own military from an Israeli-based company. So ESLT was a mover on that news again, up 6.52%. Trying to see what other ones I had here for us to talk about this morning. Portillo's, the restaurant chain, was getting hit as activist, and now it's actually up a little bit. It had been down this morning as activist investor has got into a proxy fight. I do have that news here. Give me 1 second. I apologize. I don't know where I put that info, but they are looking at putting a few people on the board and trying to tighten things up at Portillo's. Actually, I can pull it up from their news. I got it right here. So here it is. So as activist investor Engaged Capital is ready to run a boardroom fight at Portillo's. They want to nominate 2 director candidates to the company's 8-member board. Engaged owns about 7.3% of the company, has been pushing for months for improvements, such as boosting restaurant level performance, modernizing outdated locations, and strengthening national marketing. The nominees, restaurant operator Charlie Morrison and marketing executive Nicole Portwood, will be on the ballot for their annual shareholders meetings. Those that don't know, Portillo is known for its Chicago-style hot dogs, crinkle-cut fries, and chocolate cakes. It says that should be chocolate shakes. And it also should mention their Italian beefs, which are widely loved also. At least that's what I eat when I'm there. So they were down on that news, seems to be rebounding slightly. If we look at the chips here, you can see the big 3 are down. ASML, AMD, Texas Instruments, and Qualcomm moving to the upside slightly here. Intel's the big winner so far, again, on the news that both NVIDIA and Broadcom were testing their chips and having positive reports so far on them. Gold unable to break above 29.90 here. Tick is gone pretty neutral here, and we've lost a little bit of ground when it comes to advanced decline. It was at 3,300. We've now seen about 2,300 companies move to the red. That's also got QQQ now only up 30 basis points. The RUT looks like it wants to go flat here, only up 2 basis points. And we see VIX now moving back to the upside at 19.82. So again, I do think that we are going to see a little bit of a sell-off here unless we get some positive news about, tariffs that help get that moving in the right direction. So that's sort of my view on the day in general. We'll point out, I did have up here the what's going on the rest of the week when it comes to sort of earnings. On Tuesday, we really start to look at retail and tech. We've got Target, we got Best Buy, we got CrowdStrike, C Limited. So all of those I'll put across the bottom here, sort of the big names on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we stick a little bit we go a little bit all over the place, but we get into the chip world. We have both MongoDB, which we know is cloud storage and other AI related things like that. We have Marvell, which is one of my favorite in the semiconductor space. We have Zscaler, another software company. And then we also have Abercrombie and Finch coming up on Wednesday. Thursday, we get a big finish to the sort of earnings week. We get Costco, COST. We get Broadcom, we get Kroger that I talked about. So Those are the big ones there, and that sort of ends earnings, the earnings run through. And then from there, Friday again, we get a look at what's going on in non-farm payrolls, and that should move the needle tremendously on that. So those are the big ones here. Just going through some of my other notes here. Love was moving up in the pre-market here. Let's see how it's doing now. Pretty flat, down a little bit here, but Love was cut to underweight from neutral with a $25 price target. So negative analyst report here on Love. Not really moving the needle too much here. Another one with a downgrade was FTAI Aviation. They were downgraded at Stifel Nicholas and moved from 123 to 100. They're above their previous target. I will point out again that their mean target is 187, so not moving it. We were seeing, I don't know if we're still seeing it across the board, but we were seeing all of the Chinese companies down earlier today. Does look like Baba's rebounded, but Baidu down slightly. JD down 2%. I mentioned where Lee was. Neo's down about 3.35%. PDD and Baba seem to be skirting that a little bit. And I did see Tencent, Alibaba, and Baidu are some of the ones that analysts were talking about in a good way over the weekend. So ones to keep an eye on if you're looking for companies in China, maybe. Nike having a nice day. We know Steve was a fan of Nike, up 1.2%. Like we said, MSTR up 9.43%. Mara up 7.11%. The crypto stocks, while retracing a little bit, still the big winners. CrowdStrike, in anticipation of their earnings later this week, up 1.98%. Same thing here. We see Costco regain the $1,000 handle, up 1.2% here. They've got earnings on the way. Berkshire Hathaway continuing to be a company that people looking for a little bit safety in cash, so to speak, moving to up another 0.5 percentage point here. And again, since most of the talk about Buffett being big into money last week came out, you can see they've moved up, since February 24th from about 480 to 516. So big move to the upside there. Their all-time high was 518 that it just hit. So you saw an all-time high on Berkshire Hathaway on this news. Some of the other movers here, Bank of America up about 85 basis points. Let's take a look at the banks. How are financials doing today? So pretty good day for financials in general. Charles Schwab down about 0.2%. All the rest of them up. Bank of America leading the way nicely, up 1.2%. HSBC also up 1.8% here. So nice move by financials in general. And that's across the board, including, MUFG, which is Mitsubishi, which is, Japanese trading company banks. SMFG up 1.63%. Again, I've been talking about these two specifically that are ones that Warren Buffett likes a lot, that I like a lot. They're some of the largest trading houses in Japan, and those trading houses work sort of the same way that a BlackRock or Berkshire Hathaway do here in the U.S. So keep that in mind. E-commerce outside of Amazon and Mealy, most of the top ones up pretty good. Like I said, Alibaba, PD up, Shopify up. C Limited, who has earnings later this week, is up. Copart, Coupang, so Chinese names up. eBay up. So we're seeing that a little bit. Chewy getting hit here. Carvana getting hit a little bit. So we do see that to Wayfair. So it looks like the E side of e-commerce getting hit. Brick and mortar is doing a little bit better. Again, Target up 1.7. They'll be going into earnings. Macy's is up 77 basis points, though. Also, Intel pulling back a little bit. ALGM again, Allegro Microsystems now up 18.57%. So they're holding up pretty well here. Again, the news there was that they are looking to be acquired maybe by On Semiconductor. We'll say Melco holding up pretty well. So we do see that holding up nicely. SNY, I couldn't really find much news on what was going on there, but up about 3.8% here. So Sanofi, which is a pharmaceutical company, up about 3.8%. Rocket Labs, who has earnings after hours, up 0.2% here. Lee down almost 10% now on their release of their car sales. Wow, Mag 7 has completely turned around all of these outside, and Nvidia now down 4.63%. Wow. Like I said, I was cautiously optimistic. I wasn't buying a bull run. While it was good for crypto, what came out over the weekend, none of the other news over the weekend was overly positive for the markets, right? More problems in the Ukraine, more problems in the Middle East, tariffs on everywhere. None of that was very positive when it comes to the markets. And we can see after that little bit of crypto euphoria sort of led the way, we are seeing a pullback across it. So now tick down 700. Advanced decline has lost almost 2,000 from where we were. The VIX has popped up high above 20.58. I don't know if we have any other news coming. It's a little tough for me to watch too much here when I'm solo. I apologize for that. Let's see, pull this up if anything's coming across my tweet deck. VIX 20.68. I would look to fade the VIX anything about 2250 or above. As we can see, SPY's now down a quarter of a point. QQQ's down almost a half a percentage point here. Bitcoin back below the $90,000 level here. So watch out below on Bitcoin, seeing a pullback there in a bigger way. Same thing, Ethereum down almost 9% from the highs yesterday. Gold starting to move a little bit to the upside, it looks like here now. 28.77. So not exactly at highs of the day, but moving back up towards them here. So it looks like a flight to safety is sort of kicking in here. Take a look at the indices across the Spider Select funds. XLK to the downside. So we are still seeing, 8 or 9 of the sectors of the Spider Select funds on the upside. They're starting to turn, coming more neutral, right? As we watch, 3 of them have just gone negative. So that is what we're seeing a little bit here. And again, tick negative pretty big here at another 600. Advanced decline dropping down to under 500 now here. Looks like it wants to slide. And we now see, again, QQQ down 31 basis points. The SPY down 23 basis points and moving in the wrong direction overall. So market is quickly starting to move back to the downside. Not much hitting news that looks like it's anything out of the ordinary here. Okay, let's see what we get here. Tick now down 865. Advanced decline now down 500. So we are seeing that hit the broad market. Dow Jones now down 11 basis points. The SPY now down 50 basis points. QQQ down 60 basis points. Still sliding to the downside. RUT down almost 70 basis points here. Bitcoin struggling to hold 89.50. So we are seeing that. Let's see what's going on with treasuries and the DXY as we're talking about this. DXY still at below that 106.80 that we know is the key level to keep an eye on. So down towards lows of the day. So DXY dropping 2, euro up at almost 105 here. So again, those are getting towards the overbought areas here to keep an eye on. That 105.32 areas where we bounced at the end of last week up and down at it. Weren't able to do that. So it does look like we're moving to the downside. Tick -600s, now -3. Advanced decline now -400. So we are still sliding here. We look at NVIDIA down 4.58%. Amazon down 1.24%. Tesla is up 1.02. Again, Morgan Stanley gave them a big boost on their expected move. So we will see how that goes. I do want to point out here again, we got a busy day in front of us. We will have Agnieszka Wood on at noon today. We also have, I'll be filming with Dr. Alan Ellman. We'll have him back on here. Yeah, Paul, definitely European defense stocks moving up. I actually had that here earlier this morning. We talked a little bit about that. I got that right here. I can put it back up. But we were definitely seeing that, yes, a move up by a little bit by the defense sector in Germany. We were definitely seeing it in European bonds. German bonds hit 2.489%. Look for France and Italy to follow suit. Defense spending is the big key there. So that's why you want to keep an eye on that. Like you were saying, absolutely want to see that. Or keep an eye on that. I thought I had another headline here for you. Let me see if I can find it. Unfortunately, I had like 50 headlines here. You know what other news I didn't mention? Ethereum did announce a little bit of not a small move, a big news. They will have co-executive directors. And my takeaway from this is not that it matters that they are Hsiao Wang or Thomas Staniskic, but that this will lessen sort of the control that Vitalik Buterin maybe has over the Ethereum Foundation. I've mentioned over the weekend that I do think that there will be a push from the current administration to get the Ethereum Foundation to set up a U.S. entity. Here we go. So yeah, Eurozone manufacturing PMI actually hit a 2-year high, as you were mentioning there. I don't want to get your name wrong, Paul. Yeah, you can see they hit a 2-year high, 47.6. Still not good. You want to be above 50. But we do see optimism rising there as we've seen more of a push as companies talk about the fact that, or the leaders in Europe got together and said, we need to defend ourselves. We can't count on the U.S. moving forward. So I think you are 1,000% correct there that we will see a big winner in that will be the European, defense sector. Airbus, companies like that also will be a big one there. Some other news that I did have, we do know that the ECB meets this week. Later this week, it is expected that they will cut by 25 basis points, which will keep inflation in the U.S. and everything else with tariffs even more confusing. And on more good news, when it came to Europe in general, Fitch held Germany's AAA rating. There were fears, just a few months ago or even a few weeks ago that there could be downgrades across a wide swath of Europe's, central banks and countries. But the first two to come out were Fitch did an upgrade, but kept Germany at AAA, and that Moody's kept the Netherlands at AAA, and said that they think that there'll be about 1.5% growth there. Overseas, I did also see, not surprisingly, there was a pretty big trade surplus in Japan in January. There was a goods and service logged in a surplus of 65.6 billion, as again companies tried to load up before the Trump tariffs take place. And lastly, sort of in world news about that, China's PMI also grew modestly at 50.8. Again, I don't really trust when I hear the Chinese government, their releases on some of this stuff, but it is there. Again, I do want to point out that today at 4 o'clock, also, I will be going on with the folks from Prosper Trading. I do have a little bit of a link there that I can post on that right here. Put the banner across. There you go. So today, after the closing bell, we will talk about why Bitcoin is soaring on the U.S. Reserve announcement. I see that Kevin Green from Schwab will be on. We also have from the SIBO, Bill O'Keefe, which is the director of North American Derivatives, will be on, along, of course, with the man himself, Scott Bauer. So it will be really exciting. We also at 1 o'clock have live from the SIBO with Market Mind, Scott Bauer and the folks at Prosper lined up today. Like I said, we're going to have a session with Agnieszka Wood, our trading mindset coach, at 12. Once I'm done filming with Dr. Alan Ellman and the Blue Collar Investor, we're going to release his latest segment. He is going to talk about, for those of you that maybe need to use or looking for less volatility than stocks provide when using covered calls, we're going to talk about using ETFs in his covered call strategy and how you can do that. So that will be really exciting to watch. And just a full day. Everybody, good luck trading out there. Keep your head on a swivel today. The markets are moving fast. Tick going sort of negative here. Advanced decline starting to pull up. So maybe we start to see us build our way up. But my fear of tariffs is what I'm keeping an eye on, and talk of that. I don't see much moving the needles. Hopefully some of these earnings reports today, again, keep an eye on TG, Plug, Hut 8, BUR, Sphere, OKTA, Okta, not Okla, but Okta, ASTS, and GitLab as the big ones with earnings today. Have a great day, everybody, and I will see you again tomorrow morning at 9 a.m.